Hey, how's it going? Today we are going to go over my review of the Godox V1 roundhead Speedlight, and that's all coming up right now. Hey, how's it going? Kyle here, helping you level up your photo, video, and music. If you're into those sort of things like I am, definitely consider clicking the subscribe button and maybe even that bell icon so you can keep track of everything that I'm up to. So the Godox V1, and depending upon which vendor you might be looking at, whether it be B&H, Adorama, Amazon, so on and so forth, you might be seeing the Flashpoint Zoom X-R2, and it might also go by another name with Wistro. So I'm gonna be hitting a few different sections during this review. First, we're gonna talk about Speedlights in general and how the V1 fits in the universe of Speedlights that you could purchase. Second, we're gonna go over the V1 and what Godox promises in terms of what is unique about this one against all other Speedlights. Then we're gonna be talking about the pros, then the cons. This is not just a complete fluff piece. And then we're gonna talk about who this flash is actually for, who I think is gonna get the most value out of this flash, and who I think should actually pick this flash up. Finally, we're gonna talk about who it's not for, who should definitely look elsewhere for their needs. Before we get started, I wanna mention two things. First, I recently filmed an unboxing and an overview kind of first impressions video of this flash. So if you're into that sort of thing, go ahead and click the link up in the top corner of this video. And second, full disclosure, I did get this flash sent to me for review by some partners called Each Shot. Shout out to Each Shot. They sent this to me for review, so I did not purchase this with my own money. However, everything that I'm about to say, everything you're about to hear, that's all my opinion. This was no opinions in this video were forced upon me in any way, shape, or form. Okay, first, Speedlights in general. What I found very interesting is that there is no guide number posted on the Godox website, and I think I know why. Talk about that later. At any rate, no guide number that I can mention from the Godox page. Now, it does have a zoom, like many other Speedlights, from 28 to 105 millimeters. It will be able to accomplish high-speed sync with your camera, either wirelessly, if you have the tech for that, or in the hot shoe, up to 1/8000th of a second, whether that be in regular fill flash or rear curtain sync. As far as battery life, you are able to get 480 pops out of a fully charged battery, and those fully powered pops are going to recycle in about 1.5 seconds. So I mentioned it before, let me tell you a little bit more about the wireless capabilities of this flash. First of all, as far as being a slave, it is able to work in the entire Godox network. I have the Godox X Pro right here, powering and triggering the flash, just like that. Now, as far as a commander itself, it's able to control up to 4 groups. If you have a bunch of other flashes, you don't technically need this trigger, or a trigger in general. You can use this as the trigger for the other Godox flashes that you own. And of course, it's gonna be able to be optically triggered, and it has a 2.5 millimeter physical flash control port on the side right here. Okay, now let's talk about the things that are unique about the Godox V1. I'm not gonna wait any longer. I'm gonna talk about the round head immediately. The point of the round head is to create a much softer, a much more pleasing and natural light. Traditional Speedlight heads, you'll notice, are rectangular. And what they're going to do, if especially you throw light directly at your subject, it's going to create a very harsh light. So the goal was to come up with something better than the traditional flash head. I think that this definitely does deliver on that. So some other upgrades. In the back, the buttons and the dial, it all looks relatively similar to previous flashes from Godox. The on and off switch looks a little bit different, but what they've added here are directional pad buttons on the top, bottom, left, right of the rotary dial. That's not there in previous models. It kind of cleans up the buttons. So fewer buttons have dual purposes, so you don't have to kind of sit there and navigate what is already kind of a complicated menu system with Godox. Another interesting thing about the V1 that I haven't seen on other Speedlights is this. It has a modeling lamp. Yeah, buddy. Now, it's definitely a really warm light, so it's not the same temperature as the actual flash light itself, and it's not super powerful, so I'm not sure exactly if this would be of much use as a modeling lamp, but it is there. If you're in a dark environment or a really controlled environment, this might help you with knowing how the light of the flash is gonna fall on your subject. But really, it's not super impressive, the modeling lamp. But it's there. So now let's move on to the next section, the pros. Why I think that this flash is an excellent piece of gear to add to your kit. First and foremost is the quality of light that it throws out and the simplicity with which you are able to use it. You know, it reminds me of when I was a photographer for some nightclub events, and I had another Speedlight, and I carried around a couple different big modifiers. One of them I actually have, it was this very one that I carried around, and so I'm having this big old thing floating around me like a halo, just blasting everybody in the face with light that are like behind me. I had to do a lot of things to make the light work depending on where I was in the venue, how high the ceiling was. There's a whole bunch of different factors I had to take into consideration. I know that if I had just had this flash, I could have just sat there, pointed it right at my subjects, mainly drunk people in the club, and it would have worked much more simply as well. And there's another bit about the round head that makes this flash even better, and that is its compatibility with the Godox AK-R1, accessory kit roundhead 1. What you can do with it is this. Boop. You can throw a bunch of different light modifiers and accessories right on the flash, and there's a magnetized ring around the edges that let things just pop on and pop off. There's also a snoot, a grid, an additional diffuser filter. I use three modifiers out of the kit, specifically the dome, the diffuser plate, and then there's also a colored plate. So you can put different temperatures of light filters on there, and then it comes with some colors as well. So you could throw a nice little shade of blue, red, what have you. Those three are the main ones, but there's a bunch of others out there in that kit. And the fact that I already own that kit was pretty great. It's $60, so if you don't own it yet and you want to pick this up, you know, you're adding some cost to get that full functionality, but overall I think it's worth it. Good value for the money. Next is on the back of the flash. There are some things that I'm going to mention in the cons section of this video that have to do with the actual buttons and the placement. They upgraded some things, but there's a problem. I'll mention it later. But what I really like about it is they switched up the LED back screen on this. It just looks nicer. I don't think it's a higher resolution or anything, but instead of kind of a green or orange, it does change depending on which section you're in. It still has the orange in there, but the blue instead of the green, it's much easier to see. I just like it that much more. If you're not as familiar with Godox flashes, maybe you won't notice the upgrade. Suffice to say, I think that the backlit screen, very easy to read. The menus, I'll talk about in the next section. And now for the cons, and I do have some actual cons for this, despite what my tonality for this entire video up until now might have insinuated. First is the power output. Now, if you recall, when I was kind of going over some of the technical specs, I mentioned that I could not find a guide number for this flash posted on the Godox websites or anything. I did find, I think one or two, one was on Reddit, one was on another website that had done a review on this, and I'm not going to quote either of those because I don't know as to the validity of them. But the reason I think why Godox omitted it, such a kind of standardized technical spec of a flash, is that the guide number is bad. You can Google the inverse square law and how that pertains to how light kind of falls off as it travels. This is not the video for that. That's one of the issues that I have with it. If you have a subject that's a little bit further away, although it creates this great quality of light where it has its area of effectiveness, as soon as you start to fall out of that, the light is just not going to be there, and the power is not going to be there. So take that for what it's worth. It does, at the end of the day, not have the distance factor. Next is my main complaint with the buttons and how they changed in the back of the flash. So if you're like me, you like to put the camera up to your face when you take a picture and you look through your viewfinder. I even have like a little special eyepiece. Some people like to take pictures like this and look at the back screen. That's all fine. And if that's what you do, this next thing is not going to be a problem for you. On the back of the flash, the radio button, as I mentioned, they cleaned up the button, so there's fewer dual button functions, but the bottom button is mode. Well, when I'm sitting there and I go like this, depending on what I'm doing, my forehead hits the dang button and I switch modes. I'm sitting here, I go ahead and I configure the flash, and maybe I adjust the power just how I want to, this, that, or the other thing. And then I go like this, take a couple pictures, pop, 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 it's working just fine. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking and the power is off or the flash won't fire. It's because I freaking switched the modes with my forehead. That was a big problem for me the first couple times that I used it. Once I did actually diagnose that, hey, my forehead's changing the mode, there is a lock button on the back of the flash, and so I would lock it and then carry on about my day. But then if I have to make any dials, I have to unlock it again, and the lock button you have to hold for like 3 seconds. For me, that is super inconvenient. You can tell that I was sitting there for a long time the first couple times that I used it, not knowing what the heck was happening. I would look at it and be like, oh, it's perfect. Then I'd go up, start taking pictures, and look back at it, and it's completely different. I thought that there was something wrong with the unit that I got. I learned that it was just my head. So that's a big gripe that I have with it. You may or may not experience the same thing. And the very last thing, and I want to put big like stars, asterisks next to this one, is overheating. So I only experienced overheating one day out of all the days that I had used this out in the field. It just so happens that during that time in the area that I live, San Francisco, we had a heat wave. I was not going full power, not going full clip, just doing super fast pops, but I noticed that my recycle time started to increase. And I didn't really know why. So I started looking down at the flash, and I started getting the overheat icon, which I'd never seen in any of the other Godox flashes that I have, nor on this flash any other time that I used it. It was the only time that I have ever seen the overheat icon and had the flash actually not fire. That was a big problem. And if you do outdoor events, or if you do a wedding and it's outdoors and all of a sudden you're not able to have that flash pop, that's not a good thing. So while I think there is more testing that I would need to do with this, it was significant enough for me to mention it here. I'm not going to hide the fact that, for an hour, I could barely take pictures because it would be like flash, fail. So overheating. So let's recap some of the stuff that we've gone over. First, we talked about some Speedlight stuff and some of the technical specs and where the V1 sits among other Speedlights. We then talked about the unique capabilities and value props of the V1 and the round head. And then we talked about some pros and cons. I think that overall, this is a very, very intriguing piece of kit. Now, as far as price is concerned, I'll have links in the description with current pricing, but on Amazon right now, the Godox V1 goes for $260. So how does it stack up against other flashes in its weight class and even other flashes from Godox, like one of my longtime favorites, the V860 Mark II. Well, the V860 Mark II is, I think, over $100 less. I think it's $160, $170 for this flash. So why would you get one and not the other? So whether or not you're looking at the V1 in comparison to other flashes, or maybe even you're trying to make a choice between these two, I think the number one thing that puts the V1 with an edge over the 860 Mark II or other Speedlights with a traditional head is the ease with which you can achieve good results. And I think that matters a lot, especially if you're new to flash photography. You can just throw the V1 in the hot shoe and it will work. You can point it at your subjects with very little molding of the light and you're gonna have a good day. With the V860 Mark II, it's still one of my favorite Speedlights. And if you only have, 160 bucks to spend, this one I recommend 10 times out of 10. But you will need to do a little bit more to make the light work. Depending on where you are, you might need to do a lot. So the V1 is kind of an out of the box, really pleasing light. I think that that's the main difference between the two, how easy it is to achieve high quality and appealing results. So now I'll tell you who I think the V1 is for and who's gonna get the most value out of this piece of kit. First and foremost is someone who is new to flash photography and has a little bit more money to spend. The reason why I say that is because it's so much easier to achieve good results with the V1, especially for someone who might not be as versed in flash photography. So if you're going to start out, flash photography as a new facet of your hobby, it's good to get those wins quickly and to get results. I mean, that's ultimately what we want. So if you have the extra money and you're new to flash photography, I definitely think the V1 is a good choice for you. The next type of person that the V1 is for is an event photographer. So if you are taking pictures at an event, you're trying to take pictures of happy people or, table 8 just started laughing and you need to swing over there and take that picture quick. Really, I love how simple the V1 is and the quality that it can deliver without having to fuss with it. Event photographers, if you have to be on point and timely, I think it's gonna be better for you than a traditional flash. And on that note, the next person that the V1 is best for is anyone who has to have that flash on the camera at all times. I mentioned event photographer because that kind of came to mind when I was thinking of somebody who does that, but really it can be anyone who needs to have the flash on top of the camera. The V1 is gonna be for you because I think that it beats out traditional Speedlights 10 times out of 10 when it's riding on the hot shoe. So now let's talk about who I think this flash is not for. First and foremost, this flash is not for somebody who's just getting into flash photography and needs to make every dollar count. I think that there's a lot of better things you could spend on than a flash if you're worried about making rent or something like that. But even if you only have $100 to kind of get into this hobby and you're thinking, you know what, maybe I'll wait that much longer so that I can buy more expensive flash, I'll wait to get into the hobby. No, don't do that. You can go on Amazon and buy a $20, $30 Speedlight that, it's not gonna have the same kind of features, but you're gonna be able to start practicing and learning that extra facet of this hobby that we are all here to celebrate, photography. Don't let money be the reason that you don't move forward with this hobby. This will be here for you. Pro photo, all the freaking super fancy stuff will be there for you later. But for now, spend what you can, get something that's gonna get you in the door. The next person that this is for, it's gonna be obvious based on some of the stuff that I said, but is for someone who can only, or plans to only, do off-camera flash. If you are only going to be doing off-camera flash photography, I don't think this is for you. You can go ahead and pick up one of the more inexpensive Speedlights that are going to deliver a pretty great result, especially if you plan on going off camera. You're probably already gonna be using modifiers and the like. By the time you start throwing in modifiers, the round head doesn't really play a role in that. So go with something less expensive. Or for that matter, maybe go a little bit more expensive and get, a proper strobe and don't worry about a Speedlight that's gonna have that hot shoe technology because you're never gonna utilize it. So the last person who I don't think the V1 is for is someone who already owns a lot of Speedlights. If you already have lights lying around like the V860 Mark II, the V1 is not going to change your world all that much. It's, it has all the benefits that I mentioned, but if you already have hundreds of dollars worth of Speedlights lying around, just stick with that, and save that money, invest in something like another lens or the next camera, something like that. So I hope that this has been helpful. If you are looking at the V1 as a first flash or next flash, or if you're any of the types of people that I had mentioned that this flash is for, definitely consider the V1. I think it's an excellent piece of kit and deserves to be very seriously looked at and considered if you're trying to invest in your Speedlights in your kit. If you're one of the people who I don't think that the V1 is for, I'm glad that you were here to watch this video, but now now you can, with confidence, go ahead and save the money for the next investment. If I didn't mention the kind of case that you're in, or if you're a kind of photographer that does X, Y, or Z, and you're still not sure if this is for you, definitely reach out to me, leave me a comment in the comment section down below, and I will weigh in. In fact, I'm very excited to be helpful to all of my viewers. If you do decide to pick up the Godox V1, definitely consider using the links in the description down below. They're gonna send you to the Amazon store of my partner, Each Shot. It supports them, and it supports me and my channel, and it's all at no additional cost to you. Plus it's Amazon, free shipping, and good return policy, all that jazz. And that about wraps up this video on the Godox V1. If you have any additional questions, comment section down below. If this video helped you with making a decision to purchase or to save the money, let me know by giving me a thumbs up. And if this video was not helpful to you in any way, shape, or form, and you think I'm stupid and ugly, you can click the thumbs down button, but let me know why it didn't help in the comment section. I'm always looking for constructive criticism, and it's not gonna hurt my feelings, totally not. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Until next time, cheers.
1. Now check your shadow on the wall.
Oh, look at my shadow. Am I that fat?